Guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Crafty Mike, and today we're going to be reacting to the worst era of Nickelodeon by Mug. So this YouTube video is going to be 11 minutes long, so let's check it out.
It's been loved by all ages for decades. Since releasing the first three Nicktoons in the early 90s, Nickelodeon has become known as a predominantly cartoon channel. The 90s are revered as the golden age of cartoons, then the 2000s being a noteworthy successor that definitely started to falter as time went on. The next era, being the 2010s, is arguably the worst era, and I am here to tell you why. But first, a little bit of backstory. In the early 90s, they introduced Doug, Rugrats, and the Ren and Stimpy show.
Okay, don't forget go to shows. I like Rugrats and Doug, but I'm not sure about Ren and Stimpy though. Alright, let's continue.
These three would become the first Nicktoons. They proved to be very popular, thus Nickelodeon choosing a cartoon-oriented path. Rocko's Modern Life, Cat Dog, Angry Beavers, Our Real Monsters, Hey Arnold, and the Wild Thornberrys were soon to follow. All of these cartoons...
So far, these are all good shows. I'm kind of confused why the videos they made. Let's keep going.
...were very successful and still remain icons today. They were original and wacky, and had humor that hadn't been seen in cartoons before. These cartoons made up the 90s, and is now known as the Golden Era. The next era was the SpongeBob era. SpongeBob was and still is their cash cow. So, a lot of their focus went to SpongeBob. The entirety of the 2000s.
Honestly, he does kind of make a point. Because they've been like milking this show for so many times that there are even spin-offs, even though the creator originally said not to make a spin-off. But that's just my opinion.
Was plastered with the yellow square. Even with SpongeBob's success, there were a handful of cartoons that came out around this time that were still very good. The Fairly Odd Parents, Jimmy Neutron, Danny Phantom, Invader Zim, My Life as a Teenage Robot, Avatar, and Chalk Zone. The first half of the 2000s was basically a sequel to the 90s. Original cartoons, unique concepts and adventures, and very enjoyable to watch. The second half of the 2000s is where the decline began, but had not fully hit rock bottom. The shows they were making didn't necessarily drop in quality, but a lack in promotion and opportunity led them to fail. These shows were for the most part overshadowed by their more successful cousins like SpongeBob and Fairly Odd Parents. These shows were Tack and the Power of Juju, El Tigre, The Mighty Bee, Cat Scratch, The X's, and Back at the Barnyard. Nickelodeon didn't really seem to give these shows a chance, and really only promoted the big shows that they knew would perform well. In the last year of the 2000s, a show would be released that I think truly begins the descent into the worst era. Fanboy and Chum Chum. I know...
Okay. I've seen the show before, and honestly, yeah, kind of whack. Because, why would you want to be a superhero even though you don't have no superpower? Like, that basically Batman, but if you don't have the money.
Now this dead horse has been beaten so much it's just pulp now. It's trendy to hate on this show, and that's not what I'm here to do. I'm simply bringing up the point that this show relied heavily on poop humor. I'm not criticizing it, but it does set in motion a domino effect of terrible humor. I am now going to give an overview of all the Nicktoons during this decade. 17 different Nicktoons premiered in this decade, compared to 11 in the 90s and 17 in the 2000s. For the sake of the argument, I'm going to only go over actual Nicktoons, not every single animated show that aired this decade. So, for shows like Rabbids Invasion, that most certainly helps my argument, will not be talked about, as it is not categorized as a Nicktoon.
Hey there, it's Ashley, and
The first new Nicktoon of the decade was Planet Sheen, a super unnecessary spin-off to Jimmy Neutron. This spin-off was not well liked. Making side characters the main characters is usually a poor decision unless you're Saul Goodman. Sheen became overly annoying, the plots were too bizarre, in a bad way, and visually, the show wasn't the best thing Nick had to offer.
He is kind of right.
Going
The
back
show
to the
did not
humor,
did that well.
It was definitely different. It wasn't like Jimmy Neutron. It was reminiscent of Fanboy and Chum Chum. The ratings gave validity to these claims, and Nickelodeon can't...
How did you do that bad? But the question is, why get the side character a show in the first place? But they over 2.2K, and you got 2.9 stars out of 10. Yeah, that flopped hard.
canceled the show after one season. The next Nicktoon was Tough Puppy. Being that it was created by Butch Hartman, the same guy that did Fairly Odd Parents and Danny Phantom, it couldn't have been all bad, right? Well, it wasn't, but you could definitely tell the shows were losing soul. I don't know how else to describe it than that. I get that I'm here to articulate my point with words, but this show feels like you took Fairly Odd Parents, drained the soul from it, and slapped on a spy theme. The next two shows are Winx.
No, I think it's more likely that when you take Fairly Odd Parents, but they drain the soul from it and then put furries in it, there are spies.
Club and The Legend of Korra. They do not fit into the category of terrible. They are the very few diamonds in the rough of this decade. Robot and Monster is the next show, and it just brings more of the same. The show feels very empty, content-wise and visually. The humor this time isn't so much farting, but beating each other up and name-calling. There's nothing wrong with that humor, as it's probably the most common type of humor. But to have every joke based on it gets boring very fast. The 2012 TMNT is an all-around fine show. It gets the job done. I don't have any strong opinions on it. Sanjay and Craig are guilty of being one of the worst on the network. I could make the argument.
Okay, now that is true. That kind of true. Just too much fart jokes.
That it is worse than Fanboy and Chum Chum. It's probably not, but it's very close. It relies only on fart humor. It's like you took the worst quality out of all the popular shows at the time and put it into one to make this show. It is just another show where a human and a non-human best friend duo go on really wacky adventures. Another thing this show has in common with all of the others that come after it is its hyperactivity. Fanboy and Chum Chum had it along with Tough Puppy, but it is right in your face with this show. Surely, this show is as bad as it gets. Nickelodeon really said, let's take Sanjay and Craig and make it 100 times worse. This show is complete brain rot humor. If you can even...
Honestly, this show comes back, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of brain rot. Because I really hate this show.
call it humor. There are no real stories for episodes, just recycled junk you have seen before. Annoying characters. So much stuff to do with butts. It is absolutely unreal how this was created, and then continued to be created. Look on the bright side. Breadwinners is the worst this decade gets. Harvey Beaks was a breath of fresh air. And then Pig, Goat, Banana, and Cricket released, and you were right back into the mud. More hyperactive, over-exaggerated animation slop.
Yeah.
The Loud House is next, and as it is still running to this day...
Okay. The Loud House isn't that bad, it's just the same thing like My Hero Academia. And not the show, it's just the fans. Like, it's just the fans at this most. Because the fans be bugging.
It has proven to be a much better show than the others, even though I would argue the fart jokes and hyperactivity is definitely still present. Bunsen is a Beast, the fourth show by Butch Hartman, proved that it was more of what this decade has churned out. Yet again, a buddy duo where one is non-human and they go on way too wacky of adventures. Welcome to Wayne. It seems better than most. I can't give any personal anecdote as I've never seen this one. Online, the most common criticism is that it is a Gravity Falls ripoff. 2 days after Welcome to Wayne aired, Fairly Odd Parents was canceled. This now left SpongeBob and... well, nothing else, really. At this point, no show besides SpongeBob had been airing for longer than a year or so, and their cash cow SpongeBob was getting worse and worse. Hang on.
Honestly, he is kind of right. Because after releasing all of those terrible shows, they then started to shut down the good ones. Like, they then started shooting all of the ones with like a full magazine clip and only leaving SpongeBob alive.
Let me talk about that in a second. Let's finish off this decade. There are 4 Nicktoons left of the decade. Only one of them still falls into the hyperactive poop humor category. The other 3 are reboots or spin-offs. This is the exact trend repeating itself. Let me explain. At the end of the 2000s, Fanboy and Chum Chum introduced the poop humor, and it continued all throughout the decade. Now these 3 shows, The Adventures of Kid Danger, Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the Casa Grandes are all spin-offs and reboots. Now look at the 2020s so far. Almost 70% of the shows in the decade thus far are spin-offs, reboots, and licensed shows.
You got a point.
It seems as if at the end of the decade they introduce shows that are indicative of what is to come in the following decade. Okay, now the decline of SpongeBob. It's been talked about endlessly. They say it got bad after the first movie, whatever. I'm not here to dispute anything. I'm here to say at this point SpongeBob was arguably just bad. Look up the worst episodes of SpongeBob. No, I'll do it for you. The consensus is that A Pal for Gary is the worst. SpongeBob gets a new pet, and it tries to eat Gary. They literally rewrite SpongeBob to be dumber than usual to make the story work. Another terrible episode is One Course Meal, the episode where Mr. Krabs tortures and abuses Plankton, which is pretty out of character for Mr. Krabs. What's my point with this? These episodes came out in 2010. Most of the worst episodes came out in this decade, so not only were their new shows bad, but their legacy shows were too. Another point is the oversaturation of live-action shows. 29 live-action shows premiered in this decade, but that's not all. There were other shows that didn't premiere in the 2010s, but were still airing new episodes, making the total 33.
Alright, let's go over this list. iCarly, True Jackson, VP, The Troop, Big Time Rush, Victorious, Bucket and Shimmer, Fred, The Show, How to Rock, Marvin, Wendell and Vinny, Sam and Cat, The Haunted Halfways, The Thundermans, Every Which Way, Henry Danger, Nikki, Ricky, Dickie and Dawn, Max and Shred, 100 Things to Do Before, Bella and the Bulldogs, Make It Pop, Talia in the Kitchen, Game Shakers, WITS Academy, School of Rock, The Other Kingdom, Legendary Duds, Hunter Street, I Am Frankie, Kaylee Mashup, Night Squad, Star Falls, Cousin for Life, Are You Afraid of the Dark reboot.
That's a lot of shows. Some of them aren't that bad. I mean, they're sitcoms with children lead actors. They can't be that good either. But some of them are especially heinous. Fred the Show. I can't fairly talk ill of all these shows because I have close to no knowledge about them. I only watched cartoons growing up, but all you need to do is look at the numbers. 33 shows running in a span of 10 years. It has to get water.
I said you could do it for him. So Sam and Cat, honestly don't have high expectation for Sam and Cat because Sam and Cat just like a reboot of iCarly and Victoria when they did that mashup together. Because it's just basically like that. And then now we have had the other discussion, which is Fred the Show. Honestly, I did found it interesting. It was kind of a little bit dull, but somehow kids still liked it back then. I don't know. Anyways.
Or down. It has to. I know the animation studio is probably completely separate from the live action studio, with completely different budgets and everything. But I really wish more effort would have been spent on the cartoon side rather than live action. You can clearly tell where Nickelodeon's focus went into this decade, and I believe this is a small contributing factor as to why the cartoons were so bad. Why did they cling to this type of humor? What made them think it was successful and funny? I can't tell you that. The only reason I can hypothesize, and it's a stretch, a long stretch, is for shock value. YouTube was becoming very successful and popular in the early 2010s, and by the mid-2010s was huge. The networks saw this huge shift in viewership, where the kids, instead of watching cartoons, were watching their favorite YouTubers play video games, or vlogging or what have you. I'm guessing maybe this was their attempt to catch people's eyes and be like, look at us. We have this crazy, wacky, over-exaggerated junk. Look, I know that's not a very good reason, but I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel. I can't think of any other reason why any executive in their right mind would approve the poop humor. Not much has changed into the 2020s. The poop humor shows are definitely decreasing in quantity. However, they are just being replaced with reboots, spin-offs, and other licensed IPs. We're definitely in a reboot era right now. Everyone is doing it. And there aren't tons of unique new movies or shows. It only makes sense that Nickelodeon follows suit. Make sure you check out my other videos. I have quite a few about Nickelodeon and other cartoons. If you could please subscribe. I'm literally so close to 1,000 subscribers. And you hitting that button will help me greatly.
Okay, everybody, so that's it for this video, and subscribe to his channel. Hit channel and call Mug. Alright, I'll see you guys later, and see you guys next time, I guess. Bye.